Thank you very much, Sam and MC Shokolo, for the headlines. I think it's quite interesting seeing what's happening in countries like Sudan and Algeria. Interestingly, I learned that even after the president has been made to step down, the people protested and still said that the head of the Defense Council is still too close to the president, and so he has also stepped down for his next in line. I think that's great for Africa. Welcome to the lifestyle segment of the weekend show. Marriage is the legitimate union of two or more people living together for the purpose of companionship with the legal right to raise and support children. In modern times, these partnerships are being threatened by sensitive issues like lack of trust, inadequate finance, poor health, and sexual satisfaction. Family dispute not giving birth to male children, especially in Africa, and other issues such as that. However, marriage still remains a highly valued institution, even though divorce rate is still high in modern society. We will be discussing that today on the lifestyle segment, and I have three guests with me in the studio. Right beside me, I have Fakria Hashim, who is a friend. She is the convener of ArewaMeToo, which she'll tell us a bit about, a development advocate and an agri-businesswoman. Fakria has been in the news lately with the ArewaMeToo. How are you doing today, Fakria?
I'm doing good.
Do you want to tell us briefly about what you've been up to with ArewaMeToo?
Well, as you know, ArewaMeToo was initially just a hashtag that we realized had to go offline because it provided a golden opportunity to tackle one of the most sensitive issues in our society and the least talked about, which is sexual violence that has sort of pierced every fabric of our society over the past few decades, and it just became very important and too necessary to bring the conversation forth.
Okay, welcome to the weekend show. We also have with us Mrs. Ruth Dumade. She is a family clinician, a mind coach, also the founder and host of Hot Relationship Gist. Good morning, ma.
Good morning, sir.
Tell me, what's it about being a family
Clinician
and a mind coach?
Okay, you know when someone is sick,
Yes.
where do you go to?
The hospital.
The hospital. That is physically sick. Okay, when you're emotionally sick, psychologically sick, where do you go to? You go to mentors, you go to coaches, you go to therapists. And when I say I'm a family clinician, that is what we do. We make sure people are happy, both in their emotions and in their psyche.
Okay, we also have with us in the studio today Mr. Nii Dumade. Interestingly, it's a tag team, so I'm looking forward to see their different opinions. Interestingly, they're actually married. Yeah. He is also a consultant and the lead consultant of Magnicraft Consulting Limited. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Good morning, Nigerians.
So we'll dive right into it. You're here for the same reason because several things affect Nigerians and the people in different ways. Sexual violence has been in the news lately, not just in Nigeria and Africa, but across all over the world. And some of these people get affected by this, and in certain cases it leads to how it affects their relationships and their marriages. And so in recent times we've heard about how the divorce rate has increased. That's quite debatable, but those are part of the things we would be talking about. But I'll come straight to you, Fakria. What do you think, especially, let's say, northern Nigeria, what will you say is the major reason for divorces in modern time?
I think the dynamics of divorce may not have changed over time, you know, in relation to people actually wanting to get out of a bond that they've committed to. But the reason why we would see the hike now is because it's less of a taboo for you to, you know, leave your husband or your wife's house, because, you know, earlier in time, it was due to this dependence, the financial implications, you know, that played a huge role in why people often found themselves staying in marriages and relationships that they didn't want to, relationships that were not healthy for them. But these days, and especially with younger people, there's that belief that, if you find yourself in a situation where, it overburdens you mentally, psychologically, and even physically, you have the ability to get out. That is getting more support than it ever did in the past.
Thank you. Ruth,
Yeah.
what will you classify the right reasons for divorce?
The right reasons for divorce. To be sincere, if you want to see the right reason for divorce, probably some person's issue will be lack of trust and being mentally tortured, physically tortured, emotionally tortured. Such people could say, I have every right to walk out of this relationship. So those could be some right reasons, although when you dig into it more, we could see the other side of it.
Okay, I think there may be several reasons, and it is actually unique to the couple involved.
Yeah.
But it's also been said that technology has played a major role in the increasing trends and rates in divorce. For example, in the 90s and 80s, if your husband goes to work, you don't speak to him or see him till he comes back from work. But right now, you're sending messages on WhatsApp, on Twitter, you're just communicating throughout. And the more you speak, which could make things better, it could also create room for a bit of conflict. Nee, do you feel technology has influenced the increased rate in divorce?
Yes, technology has affected how we relate, obviously. And in those days when I was young, of course, there was no Facebook, Twitter. Now I have over 5,000 friends who maybe I don't really know, I've not really talked to over the years. But those days when there was no technology, we could look out for one another to hang out together, speak as in one-on-one to interact. But right now, the interaction platform has changed with the generation X, Y, and Z right now who are really blazing the trail. You need to get to understand that technology is affecting the intimacy in marriage. You can imagine where husband and wife are in the same house. Instead of them to sit down together and talk together, they are now exchanging through chats or something like that. It has eroded that togetherness physically, So we need to get back to that point whereby couples, friends, relatives, families can find time to bond together. I can remember when I was growing up, we have a time on Saturdays, Sundays where the family all come together just to share moments together. But right now, those family values are eroded, and we need to get that back.
Okay, Fakria, so interestingly, we hear a lot about abuse, domestic violence, sexual abuse, molestation, and the likes. And you would find that a lot of the reported cases in situations where maybe the girl, in most cases, is unmarried. And so we hardly hear about the situations within the families. And so, like for instance, in Nigeria, you could report your family issues to the police and they'll say, this is a family matter, you guys go home and deal with it. How do you think violence and abuse within the marriages have affected families and led to divorce? Do you think they go hand in hand in recent times?
We have this perception that all of a sudden marriage, takes away the rights of a woman. So, for example, you would walk by someone that's a woman that's selling something on the streets, and if you slap her, that's abuse. And she can take you to the police and you'll be prosecuted for that. But all of a sudden, if, the dynamics change and you're married to that woman, all of a sudden, she goes to the police station and she reports that kind of abuse, and then they tell her it's a domestic issue, go and sort it out. So what we're implying is that marriage takes away those rights from women. And with abuse, I believe that it's not really influenced by the marital status of a woman, because whether you're married or not, an abuser would still abuse. But there is that perception that of society that sort of degrades an unmarried woman, that sort of allows for these abuses to be getting away with. For example, I'll give you, okay, so when you go to universities, they do not have anti-sexual harassment policies on campus anywhere in Nigeria. Federal universities don't. So, but one of the policies, the only policy that they have is dress appropriately, modestly. So when you go and, your dressing isn't in line with, what they perceive as modest, then you find yourself being harassed by the security guards and, by the boys there and even by some of the females. So when an abuse occurs in that process, it puts you in a weaker position to defend yourself because you've already been put in a weaker position by that policy that only focuses on you, and it gives the abusers that superiority because at the end of the day they can justify why they did that to you, even though you ought to not take responsibility for their actions. So it's in a lot of these things, the society plays a role in shaping the perceptions, and it to a certain extent allows for abuse to happen indirectly, mostly because of the laws they have, the policies, even how we relate to each other. So that's why abuse, it's just a cycle of abuse.
Regardless of being within or
outside
marriage. But Ruth, we realize and we learn daily that most divorce cases are filed by the husbands, by the men. And so where's the safe space for women to manage such situations? And to be honest, marriages are great, okay? But at some point, you have to choose between saving your life, saving your mental well-being. And so what safe spaces are created for women? How are women advised to handle such situations and step away from situations which in most cases could be life-threatening?
Okay, in every marriage, there is someone that is a stuffer, someone that accumulates, and there is someone that escalates. So sometimes in a marriage A, the man may be the stuffer, and the woman may be the escalator, or escalator, as the case may be, while in the other one, reverse is the case. So if we say a lot of men, you see, some men have learned the skill of stuffing issues. They want to put it inside them. In fact, it is quite unfortunate that men stuff to the extent that a woman wouldn't know when the man has walked away from her life because he has gathered all the data, gathered all the information needed, everything he has kept record. One day, you just see the man walking away. But for women, it's quite pathetic that something is going on wrong in your marriage and you are not seeing it. You're not sensitive to what is happening in your marriage. You're not sensitive to your husband's emotion. You're not sensitive that something is not just okay. And you see the man, when you start arguing, he keeps quiet. Okay, you win, you win, you win. Every time
in some cases.
In some cases, really, you win, you win, you win. And it keeps going 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. For some men are long-time planners. They plan so long that you wouldn't know what their plans are until the day you see them just walk away. But for women, I think I have to encourage them because a lot of women are really going through some emotional and psychological stress. What are those stress? Stress of raising the children. See, this thing should not be kept for one party. It's supposed to be for both of us. You're the husband, I'm the wife. I have my part to play, you have your part to play. And if the man walks away, now the woman comes under this societal bashing. She comes under these friends alienating her. She comes under this family like, you couldn't handle your marriage. Those days, despite the fact of what our fathers, our husbands did, we stayed. And now, women don't really have that kind of patience. You see your mama bashing you, your papa bashing you, siblings. But for women, I want to encourage them. And divorce is a very, very challenging situation for anybody, whether for the man or for the woman. But if a woman has to go through that process, first, I would want to encourage her to know who she really is. Who are you? I'm not Mrs. Dumade. I am me. I said I'm a family clinician. I said I'm a mind coach. Who am I? A lot of women, they go into marriage and they lose who, they lost their essence. They don't know who they are any longer. They just always address themselves as Mrs.
Well, as opposed to knowing who you are, if I could say something about the independence, financial independence plays a major role in determining if some people stay or leave. And so sometimes it goes beyond the emotional abuse and trauma which people face in marriages. Don't you think financial independence plays a major role? Let's hear from Nii first.
Yeah, financial play, because without money, there's no romance.
Really?
to be candid, property actually creates a lot of vices that we cannot end the list. The truth about it is that marriage has two distinct roles. Okay, the man has his own roles, the woman has his own roles, and what divorce actually does is it empties the benefits of those roles to the children. And what happens is that either the woman man up to do the roles of the husband and the wife, or the husband tries to do the two roles at the same time.
I'm going to interrupt you briefly. Now, this is a continental show. In Nigeria, same-sex marriages are outlawed, basically, and relationships. But we've seen in other parts of the world, even same-sex couples still get divorces. Yeah. And so we try to bring it down to gender, male versus female. Well, doesn't it go beyond that? And that's where communication and the financial independence, which you're speaking about, doesn't it go beyond, oh, the man does this, the woman does this?
No, the thing is that life thrives on relationship.
Yes.
A man and a woman, how do they relate? And that hinges on communication. Okay? There's a book on 5 love languages. How should a man relate to his wife? We have different types of personalities, the cholerics, melancholy, phlegmatics, and the sanguines. And to be candid, I must say here, there's no one that is difficult. The concept being difficult is just relative to who is relating. If you have the skill set, the communication skill set to connect, engage, and communicate with whoever the person may be, I think divorce rate will go down. So my own key, number one, is communication barrier, where a man is trying to say so much and the other party is not heard, or is saying so much and the other person is not understanding. Because one thing about communication is just not to just say something to say it. It's another thing to say something and be heard. And it's another thing to say something and be understood. It's another thing to say something and earn a buy-in and get ownership in whatever is being discussed. So communication a lot is a barrier to how marriages end up in divorce. I'm a product of divorce, so I can really tell you that the benefit, the devastating effect it has on the children who are brought into this world without not knowing when the father proposed to the wife, what happened in the foundation of the marriage, because there are some things that if you don't get it done from the foundation, it will spill up 10 years, 15 years later. So the children are the ones that feel the brunt more of the divorce rate in the country. So I feel that if we can improve the communication, that speaking the language of your partner, not speaking the language you are used to. As a choleric, we are used to dishing out orders, but the other person is not after hearing instructions. He wants to engage.
Okay, so Ruth, final words from you in 30 seconds. So do you say counseling first before seeking dissolution, or if you've had it, you've had it? What do we do? Is this an okay trend? Does this give people a voice, or counseling first or dissolution?
Counseling. There are options, and one of the options is counseling. So many persons may not really know what is wrong or if something is wrong until they go hear from someone that probably this is the person's field, an outsider. So counseling is very important, because before a marriage hits that point of divorce, so many things have been broken. Many waters have passed through the bridge. but counseling is very important. Because if a couple, both, because in counseling, there is one person that is more interested in it than the other. If one person is the only one interested in it, it's a challenge. But if both persons see reasons why we should go for counsel, it's very important, because so many a times, some of us entered marriage with faulty foundation, wrong background that some of us are coming from. We don't know how wrong it is until we now meet the other person and this is not how I lived, though. This is not how I'm growing up, or this is not how I grew up. Before you know, so many problems that you can't even explain. So counseling is key for me.
Thank you very much for it. Finally, Fakria, policy, you spoke about societal norms which have affected us a lot, which has pretty much endorsed and allowed some of this domestic violence and abuse. What do you think the next step should also be? Do you think we need to also go beyond just giving people a voice to actually influencing and changing policy?
So when we decided that ArewaMeToo had to go offline, these are the things that we had in mind, and we're currently working on several initiatives that are supposed to sort of pierce through these institutions, and one of the most important for us are policies and ways that we can aid in the reforming of our laws. And the thing is, so many organizations already exist that are already doing these things, but what we find is that there's a gap between collaborative efforts for these organizations. So what we aim to do is to sort of provide a space where a lot of collaborative effort can actually happen, so that there is strength in numbers, so coming together to pursue the same objectives. And usually a lot of these organizations live in the same states, so whereby giving them that platform sort of gives them a space to access more resources and leverage on the capabilities and the capacities of within the organizations within the states, and even have a wider reach outside of their respective states. So essentially that's what we're doing. One of our major focuses are universities and the laws that affect, policies that affect universities, because that's where the future is, and that's where the focus has to be.
Thank you very much. I think that's a great place to leave this. It's been an interesting time engaging with our guests in the studio, and what I can take away from this is communication, counseling, and creating safe spaces. People should be able to coexist well, but certain things need to be put in place. Don't go away. We still have more to come with sports, entertainment, and also politics. It is the Weekend Show.